Hello and welcome to this exploration of one of the most catastrophic events in Irish history, the Great Famine of 1845 to 1852, also known as the Great Hunger, or in Irish, An Gorta Mór. This period of mass starvation and disease had a profound and lasting impact on Ireland's population, culture, and relationship with Britain. As we delve into this dark chapter, we'll examine the complex factors that led to such widespread suffering, the inadequate response from the British government, and the long-term consequences that shaped modern Ireland. Before we begin, it's important to understand the scale of this tragedy. The population of Ireland on the eve of the famine was about 8.5 million. By 1901, less than 60 years later, it had plummeted to just 4.4 million. This staggering decline was due to both deaths from starvation and disease, estimated at around 1 million, and mass emigration of over 1 million more. Some towns saw their populations fall by as much as 67%. It's difficult to overstate the demographic upheaval this caused. There was no law it would not pass at their request, and no abuse it would not defend for them. While the immediate trigger of the famine was the failure of the potato crop due to blight, the roots of the disaster ran much deeper. Ireland in the mid-19th century was a country rife with inequality and injustice. The majority of the population were poor Catholic tenant farmers, often living on tiny plots of land and relying almost entirely on potatoes for sustenance. This dependence on a single crop left them incredibly vulnerable to any disruption in the food supply. The system of land ownership in Ireland was a major contributing factor to the famine's severity. Much of the land was owned by absentee British landlords who had little interest in the welfare of their tenants. These landlords often employed middlemen to manage their estates, creating a system ripe for exploitation. Tenants had no security of tenure and could be evicted at will, which discouraged any long-term improvements to the land. This precarious situation meant that many Irish farmers were living on the edge of subsistence even before the potato blight struck. Confiscation is their common title. The potato blight itself, caused by the fungus-like organism Phytophthora infestans, first appeared in Ireland in 1845. It's believed to have originated in the Toluca Valley of Mexico and spread to Europe via infected potatoes. The blight caused widespread crop failures across Europe, but nowhere were the effects as devastating as in Ireland due to the population's heavy reliance on potatoes. In 1846, 3/4 of the Irish potato harvest was lost to blight. This was a catastrophe for a population that, in many areas, depended on potatoes for up to 60% of its nutritional needs. The response of the British government to the unfolding catastrophe in Ireland has been a subject of intense debate and criticism ever since. Initially, under the Conservative government of Sir Robert Peel, there were some attempts at relief. Peel secretly purchased £100,000 worth of maize and cornmeal from America to provide food aid. However, this response was hampered by a desire not to interfere with the free market and a belief that private enterprise and local efforts should be the primary means of relief. When the Whig government of Lord John Russell came to power in 1846, their response was even more inadequate. Influenced by the doctrine of laissez-faire economics, they believed that the market would provide the necessary food. This led to the disastrous decision to halt the previous government's food and relief works, leaving hundreds of thousands without access to work, money, or food. The new administration did introduce a program of public works, but it proved impossible to administer effectively. I don't think there is another legislature in Europe that would disregard such suffering as now exists in the west of Ireland, or coldly persist in a policy of extermination. One of the most controversial aspects of the British response was the continued export of food from Ireland during the famine years. While grain imports did increase, particularly after 1847, large quantities of food were still being shipped out of the country. This was partly due to the government's reluctance to interfere with trade, but it also reflected a deeper attitude towards Ireland and the Irish people. Many in the British establishment viewed the famine as an opportunity to reshape Irish society and economy along more modern lines, even if this came at a terrible human cost. One of the most significant long-term consequences of the Great Famine was the mass emigration it sparked. Between 1845 and 1855, at least 2.1 million people left Ireland, primarily on packet ships but also on steamboats and barks. This represented one of the greatest exoduses from a single island in history. The majority of these emigrants went to North America, with others settling in Britain, Australia and other parts of the world. The conditions these emigrants faced were often horrific. Many travelled on what became known as coffin ships, overcrowded, poorly maintained vessels with inadequate provisions. Mortality rates on these journeys were extremely high, with disease rampant in the cramped and unsanitary conditions. Those who survived the journey often arrived destitute and in poor health, facing discrimination and hardship in their new homes. I have called it an artificial famine. That is to say, it was a famine which desolated a rich and fertile island that produced every year abundance and superabundance to sustain all her people and many more. Despite these challenges, the Irish diaspora would go on to have a profound impact on the countries they settled in. In the United States, Irish immigrants and their descendants became a significant political and cultural force, particularly in cities like Boston, New York, and Chicago. The famine-era emigration laid the foundation for a global Irish community that continues to shape international relations and cultural exchange to this day. It's a testament to the resilience of the Irish people that out of such tragedy and suffering, they were able to build new lives and communities across the world. The Great Famine left an indelible mark on Irish society and culture. Its impact went far beyond the immediate loss of life and mass emigration. It fundamentally altered the demographic makeup of Ireland, accelerating the decline of the Irish language and traditional rural ways of life. The population of Ireland has still not recovered to pre-famine levels, a unique situation among European countries in the modern era. Politically, the famine had profound consequences. It intensified anti-British sentiment among the Irish population, both at home and abroad. The perceived inadequacy of the British government's response fueled nationalist movements and contributed to the growing push for Irish independence. The famine became a powerful symbol of British misrule in nationalist narratives, shaping Irish political discourse for generations to come. The Almighty indeed sent the potato blight, but the English created the famine. The memory of the famine has been preserved and commemorated in various ways. Numerous memorials have been erected both in Ireland and in countries with significant Irish diaspora populations. These range from sculptures depicting emaciated figures to museums and educational programs. The Great Famine is now a mandatory part of the school curriculum in Ireland, ensuring that future generations understand this crucial period in their history. Debates about the famine continue to this day, particularly regarding whether it should be considered an act of genocide by the British government. While most historians reject this characterization, arguing that it lacks the element of intent required for genocide, the discussion highlights the ongoing sensitivity and importance of this period in Irish-British relations. What's clear is that the Great Famine was a pivotal moment in Irish history, one whose effects are still felt today, shaping Ireland's national identity and its place in the world. England governed Ireland for what she deemed her own interest, making her calculations on the gross balance of her trade ledgers and leaving moral obligations aside, as if right and wrong had been blotted out of the statute book of the universe. As we conclude our exploration of the Great Famine, it's important to reflect on the lessons this tragic period holds for us today. The famine was not simply a natural disaster, but a complex interplay of environmental, social and political factors. It serves as a stark reminder of the consequences of economic inequality, political neglect, and the dangers of over-reliance on a single crop or industry. Moreover, the famine highlights the importance of responsive and responsible governance. The failure of the British government to adequately address the crisis, driven by a combination of ideological rigidity, prejudice, and misunderstanding, exacerbated the suffering of millions. It's a cautionary tale about the potential consequences of prioritizing economic doctrine over human welfare. We must not complain of what we really want to obtain. If small farmers go and their landlords are reduced to sell portions of their estates to persons who will invest capital, we shall at last arrive at something like a satisfactory settlement of the country. Yet, amidst the tragedy, we also see remarkable examples of human resilience and solidarity. The efforts of private charities, both in Ireland and abroad, to provide relief demonstrate the capacity for compassion in the face of overwhelming need. The ability of Irish emigrants to build new lives and communities around the world, often in the face of significant hardship and discrimination, is a testament to their strength and adaptability. As we look back on the Great Famine from our vantage point in the 21st century, it's crucial that we continue to study and remember this period, not only as a pivotal moment in Irish history, but as a powerful reminder of the ongoing challenges of food security, economic justice, and responsible governance that continue to face our world today. The echoes of the famine can still be heard in contemporary debates about immigration, economic policy, and international aid. By understanding this history, we are better equipped to address these challenges and to work towards a more just and equitable world. The past is never dead, it's not even past.